Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, flying alone. We do have the legendary Vic Braden Director's Chair. The back of that chair, well over 50 years old. Tonight, our guest is the legend of John Posey. Posey is a former student. His name comes up quite often because of his work ethic. So many things, low maintenance, humble. Everybody loves Posey. He does have a first name, but we just go with Posey. Sam Garcia, one of our longtime students, he's in Vero Beach, calls me up, says, got a great kid. He made the lineup at his Division III school as a freshman, Bowdoin up in Maine, beautiful school. And he was cut sophomore year. And he doesn't want to go out on those terms. Can he come hang out with you? And he took a year off, and a lot of great stories within the Posey legend that he went back, made the lineup, played all 3 years. Posey. We worked an entire year. He's a two-hander. Like 3 days before he went back for the tryout to make the lineup, he said, I think I'm going to be a one-hander because I love Roger Federer. And I said, no. And he did go back and play as a two-hander. But now a lot of years have gone by, and I do think the legend of Posey has a beautiful one-handed backhand. We have to get that on film, share it with our guests. Let me call him up, get him on the line, and I see if I could use my phone. Same as always, the dinosaur who has no technological skills. Let's see. Waiting. Please. It's not coming up. And now I have it. Calling Sharon, Connecticut. John Posey, son of Sam and Ellen Posey. Great parents. Amazing parents. We'll talk to him about his parents. Sister, too. Judy.
Hey.
John Posey, the legend of Posey. How's our sound? Can you hear us?
The sound is great. That's a good start to the show there.
Posey. You're in Sharon, Connecticut. Let's just start. I just said great parents. We'll just go quick. Tell the listeners about the race car driver and so many other things. The author, painter, architect.
Yeah, he had a lot of. This is my dad here. He had a lot of different phases there.
The Renaissance man.
His career. Yeah. I think. Yeah, sort of nuts when I ask him about different stuff he did. It's like I feel like I would have taken like one of the careers, you know. he had about 5 of them.
With the Greeks, in America we say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The Greeks say it falls under the tree, but your dad, very quiet, humble guy like yourself, but award-winning as far as these awards, those awards, Emmys.
Yeah, he won a couple Emmys. That was for the TV, obviously.
I read his autobiography that you said it was written before you were born. Tell us what other books. I know you're a writer. We'll talk a little bit about that. I guess I should do this first, but think about that question, and I apologize. Is that why Posey's a legend? Because he hit the backboard all day, every day. I mean, it comes down to the plank. It comes down to the iron V. Posey's a lot of people's number one from the time that you spent with us. I think there were Raven Clausen, Roberto Calla, there's Brandon Flanagan, and I'm sitting in the facility that he established, designed, the FM Tennis Performance Center in Boynton. But yeah, go back to the books.
You guys got a lot of number ones down there, including all 3 of those guys. Right?
Yeah. But go with the writing. The artistic side, your mother's the artist too.
Yeah, she did. She started out like a photographer, illustrator, worked for Sports Illustrated, and she actually shot a Sports Illustrated cover with Billie Jean King on it. So that was kind of cool. She got she got a serving lesson from Navratilova.
Wow.
She was like 25 or something. She was like, at the time, she was like, I'm not really interested in this tennis, you know. Now she's like, oh God, if I could go back and, you know, have that again.
Actually, Brandon, I'll have a photo taken and sent to you. Brandon it's amazing setup he has, just the decor, the art work that's on the wall. But he has a cover, many Sports Illustrated covers, and one is definitely, maybe more than one, but one is definitely a Billie Jean King.
Yeah, maybe it's hers.
Yeah.
She did Borg's logo. That was pretty cool. They had her like, I think they told her like his management company was like the ones who sort of sponsored the story or something. They were like, well, just like he's going to be in New York for a day. I guess it was around the Open. They were like, just take him around, whatever he wants to do, you know. So she asked him, thinking like it's in Times Square or something. He's like, he just wanted to ride the subways. So they just rode. They spent like 3 hours riding subways together.
Wow, that's a great story.
That's pretty cool.
I tell your mom, in setting this call up, I had a chance to talk to her, Ellen. I'm reminded of your mom when I'm in a grocery store and I see the spaghetti sauce has got John Newman's mug. And your mother.
Paul Newman. Yeah.
Paul. Oh, shoot me, Paul Newman. Senior moment, Paul Newman. What a legend. The Sting. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
No, but for the listeners, next time you look at one of the jars, John's mother did that. I did tell her, John Newman, Paul Newman. I was working at Vic's place, Vic Braden, and teaching a group of ladies, and they didn't show in the afternoon. I go in the pro shop, and there's a note. It says, Steve, we're not going to come this afternoon. We're going to be down at the bottom of the hill where there were horses, watching Paul Newman ride horses. Yeah, and being a kid from a really small town in upstate New York, I go, Paul Newman, the legend. And anyway, I didn't stay as long as they did, but I did go and watch him ride horses.
Did you think of him as a legend, or was it you weren't as familiar?
No. For certainly, he was. I remember being a little kid with my parents. The youngest of six. I can remember it was just I was the only one at home. Everybody else had gone away to school, and went to see the Sting with my parents. No, everybody knew Paul Newman. I remember stories that I heard from your mother and father. One was when he was at Yale. There was a scene where he had to cry, but his buddies came in, and the person in charge of the play basically said, "Hey, you can't perform right now. Either you cry right now. We don't care about your buddies, your machoism, and or you don't have the part." And
yes, I remember that. That was a great story. He did it, and he was like, that's when he thought he became an actor. When he realized he was committing to it instead of before that. He was like, it was a cool thing to do, and then that sort of flipped it for him. Man.
But yeah, your family connection is he, like your dad, was a race car driver.
Yes, yeah. He and my dad actually drove together for a while. They did some TV, couple things for Budweiser, sponsored. He was it was actually kind of inspiration to me, because my dad told me he was really not a talented driver. He started out in this little sort of boxy Datsun, and he'd go to like our local track, and he just sort of beat around the course for hours. And my dad was like, his theory from his own experience was, if you didn't have the speed, you couldn't really learn that. You could maybe learn to be more consistent, stop making mistakes and stuff. But if you didn't have that sort of natural speed, it wasn't going to come, And he said Paul just like slowly chipped away, and he didn't take the approach you sort of expect a guy like that might, to just get the biggest, most powerful car you could get and try to just win on machinery. He wanted to be good, and my dad said he achieved it, but it took him like 6-7 years of just sort of solitary practice out there before he really kind of
No, for our listeners,
figured out what he was
for our
doing.
listeners, I mean, that formula, it's just amazing. If someone wants to be a really good tennis player, it's how's it go? It's to be an extraordinary player, you have to do the ordinary and extraordinary amount of times. But I remember in the first book,
Right.
your dad's autobiography, I think Mudge Pond Express. Is that right? Is that the name?
That's it. Right.
That there was a lot written about, I mean, if your dad was off in New Zealand, going all over the world, where you took your car with you, and you took more than one engine with you, and
just the logistics of it to me are sort of mind blowing. I didn't even know how he got to the races. Let alone the driving part. But yeah.
The term crew. I mean, it's kind of like Roger Federer has a crew. I mean, he has an entourage. He's so many people helping him out.
I mean, it was primitive back then. It's just a couple guys and your mechanic and your, maybe an engine guy, and that was like, I mean, compared to today's pro racing, I mean, they got countries behind them, But yeah.
No, Cover to Cover. I read that book. I didn't read Cover to Cover, the book on railroads. Tell us about you and your dad and the railroad.
Okay, there's not much to say there, but he started the first one when I was born, pretty much, and he steadily expanded it until the final layout takes up our basement. It's about half the length of a tennis court, I'd say, and extremely detailed, insanely detailed, you could say.
We're not talking about the railroad. It's how do you say little kid railroad?
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, toy railroad. I mean,
train layout, toy railroad. Yeah, sure, yeah. That was about 2 or 3 years. He was in the basement working on that thing for like 4 hours a day or something.
And recently you helped your dad with another book.
He just came out with it. It's kind of like, it's called Sam's Scrapbook, I guess. It's like a sort of kind of like photos with captions, kind of same materials the first one, but just shorter and kind of looking back on his career and all that stuff. Yeah.
Actually, Vic Braden, he did the same thing. His last book. I think the title of the book, could be wrong, but if I'm 82, why do I feel like I'm 22? And then it was many, many photos with captions, and I remember, Vic contacting me, and I helped him with who was who, with some of the people that he met.
He could probably fill about 20 books. How many do you think he ended up writing?
Well, there's Vic Braden for the Future was edited for our listeners, Tennis 2000. There's Vic Braden Mental Tennis. There's Vic Braden Quick Fixes, and I think that's it. You and I talked about it.
I remember you told me to get the Tennis 2000 when I was there, and I read that one start to finish.
And our listeners should know Posey, pretty high SAT scores. I always tease where Posey could be on a snowstorm and a blizzard, and he can still read. But you and I have talked about it. I know with your writing, we'll get into that more, but it still should be done, Posey. We should write a book together. Vic Braden, help me out with the title. Vic Braden.
Was it Missed and Misunderstood?
No, yeah, you're right. Vic Braden.
Something like that.
Vic Braden is missed and was missed. There you go. Vic Braden is missed. Yeah. Vic Braden, the person, anybody knew him. He was just perfect as perfect could be. That's my phone, listeners. I apologize. Beeping in. We messed up again. That's all right. We're amateurs. But no, Vic Braden, again, I apologize. I should be able to just turn it off, but I don't want to lose you. Vic Braden is missed, and Vic Braden was missed, meaning that it's still it's not late. We're trying to do that through the GreatBase. Vic's our cornerstone is to circle back because it's fact-based instruction. The tennis courts, it's still 19.1 degrees wide. I mean, water still runs downhill, not uphill. And yeah, that's a book that we need to write, Posey.
Do you think people are getting more into that kind of analysis that he started doing so early now? I mean, I feel like even just watching commentary, it's like it seems like people are talking about stuff a little more in statistical terms than.
Well, I think
maybe
stats.
20 years ago.
I do think stats. We had Warren Pretorius on as a guest, definitely with tennis analytics. With Bill Jacobson, we founded CompuTennis. We had a connection with Bill, where we even helped with telecasts, but not so much with technique. I think the analytics that really need to be covered are grip, swing, body. I don't think that in this country, for sure, that Joe Public is really learning much about tennis when they watch tennis. In all fairness to the commentators, I'd like to listen to anybody talk about tennis because you can always learn. But no, I'd say the nuts and bolts for stroke production are not there.
Right.
They're not really talking about how Kyrgios is so far out to the right and so far in front, and if you're over your head, what happens. You have to change the angle of the racket path, and the racket slows down. And we had Gideon Ariel on as a guest, and he was Vic's partner. And you just go back 50 years, and they just stand the test of time. I should say fundamentals are what Vic and Gideon stood for. But no, that's where, again, the title of the book, Vic Braden, you could even say Vic Braden, the man is missed, and Vic Braden, the resource, was missed. And granted, there's people who, certainly know some Bradenisms, but, there's a few of us left that live the book. There's one thing to read the book, but another thing to actually live the book.
Right.
Vic I would say, he had so much information that he was the most misinterpreted. Plus, his presentation was overwhelming. He was so funny that people would remember the presentation and not the information.
You told me people would sort of dismiss him because he was just this sort of, avuncular guy, and he didn't take himself too seriously, so people didn't think of him as, a sort of pro level. He was more like his laugh and win at doubles. I remember, my mom got me that when I was like 15, and we were playing our club doubles tournament.
Actually, I stand corrected. That is another book, the doubles book. The tape he had, 1975, one take. Mixed doubles is a fantastic adventure. Everything on that tape still stands the test of time, not only for mixed doubles, but for doubles, because doubles is doubles. But if people going back to our podcast, I think we have 3 of them with Andy Fitzell, who no one spent more time with Vic the last 10 years of his life besides his widow, Melody. But the dummy that I am, I volunteered in the mid-'70s, Boca Raton Tennis Association, and I showed that film over and over again. We have to rewind it and reload it, and it was, 16 millimeter, maybe an 8 millimeter, but it was reel to reel, and so I must have watched it 10 times, and then it was like, to this day, we were talking to Austin Krychek, who you probably practiced with when he was little. He was a guest last week, and he mostly plays the deuce court, lefty in the middle, and that the deuce court player gets more shots. The point starts there, and the right-hander who's been mistaught, 85% of them on the forehand volley being strong continental, elbow in, balls going to the deuce court. They're running around their backhand, pulling horizontally, goes to the deuce court. So left field, the kid in right field. And I think that people listen, it's like, okay, I've heard that last week, but it's just reinforcement. All the way to the top, the macho male ego puts himself in the ad court and saves. Now it's a two-handed backhand for most players, but years ago it was a one-hander. The man pulls horizontally, and he has a better chance of going cross court. But the woman who played the deuce court with a one-handed backhand in the day, and it's tough for the two-hander. but you really have to be able to swing inside out. That's something too.
Which is it's the harder shot, right? I always feel like if you don't like the backhand, you want to play the side, or as people put you on the deuce side so you can hit a forehand. It's kind of
and coming back to TV, now inside out means you're going to run around your backhand and hit a forehand, and then you're inside, outside, inside, and that's all correct related to a target. So you could say tactically okay, but inside out is a technical term. You swing from close to away, and that's the only way you can hit true topspin. So Posey, we got to have you write that book. There was a children's book we wanted to write too. We give all our ideas out. That's all we do is.
I think I still got that in a folder somewhere. Yeah.
the coloring book, but now I was in a meeting. Someone said kids don't use crayons anymore. But that could be a hard sell. I don't know. But I think that's one of the reasons to do it. But where a kid actually takes the crayons and you can have a little message in the corner of the page where they're coloring a tennis court for the tennis parent, another corner for the tennis pro, then for the kid. And I just think that's where we have to really go back to teaching basics. That's where I think we're really struggling.
Okay, that reminds me of something I wanted to ask you, which was, I remember when I first got there, you were talking about how, I don't know, everybody's saying that pro tennis, you can't really play an all-court style the way you could maybe, this is now 20 years ago, but people were saying then 20 years ago, just because, the rackets, the strings, just balls coming too fast and you just can't volley. And I remember you had an interesting sort of alternative explanation for why you don't see a lot of pros doing that. And it was that you don't see juniors doing it because obviously when you're 12, you can't be charging the net and win a lot of matches, and the emphasis had gone up on winning early, and that's how you got the money and the coaching to advance. And so when you got to the pros, the guys who got there didn't have those skills, and to me, that was really a sort of fascinating alternative explanation. It suggested you could still play that way if you trained to play that way from 12 on, But I just I wanted to know what you thought about tennis right now versus 20 years ago when we were talking about that. Because to me, it seems like it's coming a bit your way. I mean, it's guys like this guy Cressy, have you seen him play?
No, Cressy, he spent 3 weeks with us.
Really?
With Matt Clore, Andy Fitzell. Matt was the national coach with USTA. Now he's at Florida. That's how it started. Is that I have to get it right. His mother's a volleyball player. Played, I think, at USC, and he went to UCLA.
I love this. They interviewed his teammate. I think the guy who played one on the team, and the guy was like, "People don't realize how bad he was." They're like, "This guy is the most improved player in tennis history." It was like he didn't just lose; he lost 0-0, and now he's at Wimbledon. I mean,
it's an amazing story. That must have been Mackenzie McDonald. It might have been Guerin, Marcus Guerin, I believe. I know.
I think it was Guerin. Yeah. I'm not sure, but
my son Connor, he won a few doubles tournaments with Guerin. But yeah, Mackenzie McDonald, he spent 3 weeks with us during the pandemic. He said the same thing. Now Cressy, the story is that he was recruited. Well, let me go back to his mother's American, his father is French. And both the USTA wanted him, okay, we want this guy in our corner now. And then the French Tennis Federation, we want this guy in our corner now. And Marcos Baghdad has told him that he needed to go with his French coach. And so, that was a decision he made. But at that time, he wanted Andy Fitzell to travel full time and all the circumstances. Andy just, we've been recently married and, still married with his wife, Leo. But Cressy, to me, he could give all of tennis a lesson. The work ethic for sure. that he was recruited. They thought, okay, he could definitely play three doubles, but that especially his forehand was so bad. But he worked so hard, and he was just relentless. And he does have an amazing work ethic, but also to his tactics. Though, I mean, I get a little discouraged when, he's really almost like the lone wolf, serving volleying.
Yeah, but at least there is one. I mean, I think it's kind of it's something that the guy's actually first and second serve coming in every time. I mean,
yeah, no, first and second with, but and also too, he's trying to play a deep volley. He's trying to play the 3-shot combination, and I love to watch. I love to watch Kyrgios' serve. I mean, he puts people in the seats, but he's not really coming in and sticking the volley. I don't think he. I mean, Max doesn't serve as well as, I don't think anyone right now is serving as well as Kyrgios. But then when you just come back to doubles, I mean, please, the tennis court's 36 feet wide. You divide it in half, it's 18. If you've got an aggressive partner, you only have to really cover 15 feet. And, the rackets say, it's 27 inches, but just say 2 feet. The racket's same length as your arm, that's 2 feet. So you just reach out, it's 4 feet. You take a step.
Right.
Now that's 7 feet. You really can cover the 15 feet. But, then the math, people come in and they're, number one reason people don't go to the net is brain memory. They don't go to the net. If you don't go, you don't go. And you don't develop the instincts. But then two is, people years ago weren't really that well taught. But because the rackets were made of wood and every 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams were on grass. But, now I actually think people would be in agreement that people are much closer to a composite in between a continental grip and a forehand on the forehand volley, and they have the same grip on the backhand volley. Like Nadal really goes way down in the backhand volley. And I agree with McEnroe. He's one of the best volleyers because what he does preceding the volley and how close, he's so explosive closing in. When there's hang time, he's just in.
So you think his grip is not so ideal there, but he sort of makes up for it.
Yeah, and our listeners, it's not like we're telling Nadal he should change his grip at this stage in the game, but no, it's not.
Right.
It's not thinking
Nadal
about it.
would probably do it if he thought there was something to be gained,
Yeah, he probably would. He can run through walls, but it's not really thinking about the grip. It's this is what the grip is. Everybody's hands are a little bit different. The study of palmistry, but the angle of the racket face, the grip determines the angle of the racket face. So
I just feel like guys are playing so aggressive now that they're almost forced to come in. I mean, it's like it's a sort of way it's evolved. It's like, I don't know. I just think they're coming in more than maybe 20 years ago or something, where everybody was sort of predicting it was going the other way, that nobody would even approach the net.
No, I was asked by a visiting student of Dad now, someone who I train teach tennis, and he asked me if he thinks that my feelings are so strong about technique and the way people are playing based on I've been fighting battles for so long. You're in the corner and here comes another kid.
Right.
And they've taken tennis lessons and their game really from a technical standpoint is a train wreck. But no, I think with the volleying, you look at a Taylor Fritz, you saw him play against Rublev, and that guy is playing awesome. Of course, he serves so well, he returns well. So, I mean, some people say that's 80% of tennis. I mean, he's serving well, returning well. And
right.
I'm just watching him play going, oh, my word, if this guy could come in and close off a volley, he could win Grand Slams. I mean, he won Indian Wells. He's beat this player and that player. So, yeah, then it comes down to, not to beat up an Andy Roddick. I mean, just to play the U.S. Open, you're an amazing tennis player. But, you hear that one slam wonder. Andy Roddick was the best tennis player in America for almost a decade. So I'm a big Andy Roddick fan. But could you imagine if he could have volleyed? And
I think he wanted to. I remember I saw an interview with him one time. He said, my favorite shots are the shots nobody expects me to make. When I come in and I hit a little touch shot that, I think he enjoyed that part of tennis, but nobody had taught him to do it. So I remember you said he was a gamer. He just sort of made the best of what he had. I think he was an amazing overachiever, but people.
No, I mean,
don't know.
I remember reading Brad Gilbert's first book a second time because Roddick had won something like 22 matches in a row. I heard a Roddick quote. They said, "How do you do it?" And he said, "I just pretend my mother's life is on the line." And but no, I think John Roddick. I did some work training their tennis coaches at their academy a long time ago, and I saw John Roddick. He wasn't at the academy when I was there. He was traveling with his brother Andy. Jimmy Connors was in the loop at one time, and so I went up to John and said, "Hey, thanks for the opportunity to go to your academy." And I said, "I used to coach against players that you played, Chad Clark, and Clayton Stanley, because I saw John Roddick as an 11, 12-year-old, and he said victory or death." So, I mean, there's so many people to thank. I think Andy Roddick's parents, I heard so many great things about his parents through people I trained that were at the Roddick Academy. But that's where the will to win. Just a couple weeks ago, we talked to Harold Solomon. We're working with his grandson, and what he had to say to the people we were coaching. If my teammates who played 2 hours, I played 4. They ran an hour and a half. If they ran an hour, I ran an hour and a half, and I went to the gym every day. And so I really think it's the intangibles. But coming back to Max Cressy, you need 2 things to be a serve and volley. You need a serve and a volley. And if you don't serve and volley, you don't serve and volley. And to play doubles, I do think people could study what they're doing in Norway. I mean, why are they so successful in Norway? I do think, and that technology with the UTR, and the UTR, obviously there's positives, but it's not a rating, it's a ranking. If you're a 9.2 versus a 9.5, that's a ranking. And people want to win.
Right.
They want to win now. There's not long-term vision. And tennis is a very difficult sport. We're being taken over by some racket sports right now. Tennis, obviously, I hear from a lot of people I train that are in the club business that because of the pandemic, more people are playing tennis. They're not playing collision or contact sports. But no, the service.
Maybe it'll drive some people back from pickleball. Get some more distance between us.
Actually,
could save the sport.
I am going to buy some pickleball rackets and send kids to the pickleball courts. I don't know if the adults.
Are you really?
The adults will appreciate that. I mean, I watch and I think it's great for half volleys. It's great for volleys. It's all about going forward.
All right. Well, if you're into it, I'll stop bashing it then.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's unfortunate they're taking over tennis courts. That's the sad news. But I think if you can't beat them, join them. And out of the blue, someone called me up and told me that my son Connor, who could play doubles well and good hands and such, you spent years with him, that if he wanted to make some money, he should play pickleball. In fact, someone who you know well is Ryler DeHart. You can get on Facebook, and he's playing pickleball. But there's a guy. Hello.
Hey, still here.
Yeah. So there was some. Sorry, listeners. I thought I lost you, Posey. Hang on. Yeah, Ryler DeHart, though, he's the kind of guy who's got to always compete. He needs the juice. So I think it's great that he's playing pickleball.
Ryler DeHart. I remember you remember seeing him. Well, I'm sure you do, but I remember we saw him play. You were in his box.
I was with you.
Gabe and I.
Yeah, you were in the stadium. Yeah.
We were at the very top of the stadium. See him play Nadal in the second round. That was one of the great nights of my life, I think.
I was invited. Austin Krajicek had won Kalamazoo, and so I'm at the Open. I mean, I've been at the Open so many times, and I'm usually there for some reason. I don't recall too many times just being there as a fan, but I've been a bunch of times. And Ryler, he had to qualify. He won his first round match, and I walked up behind him, and I go, "You can't beat Jeff Lewis. You can't beat Jeff Lewis." Because Jeff Lewis, who obviously teaches tennis, great. I can remember doing a clinic. I didn't live in Tampa, but I went down to do a clinic for Thomas Olerstedt. And those two guys, speaking of grips at that time, I mean, if they played mini tennis for 1 hour, they were playing mini tennis for 8 hours, just over and over again. And they were playing it like
Jeff and Ryler?
Yeah, they were playing like Americans. I don't want to categorize, but you watch a European kid on red clay play mini tennis, it's a completely different look than
Right.
Americans playing mini tennis will play continental grip on everything, but they don't do that on the red clay. But people need to be taught that. I mean, at Federer, I know you're a huge Federer fan. He makes, I know he's coming back for the Laver Cup. He makes, tennis look like mini tennis. When he just, it's amazing. But Posey, for the listeners, you spent, you came that 1 year, but it seemed like you were a permanent fixture. There was a period of time where you were there. Maybe it was close to a decade. Days turns into decades.
It stretched on. In the end, I got my chance to play the 10 years that it was supposed to take to become a champ. But that was.
So many stories. I remember a gal, Liberty Svecki. She became a very good player. Went to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, definitely.
Ryler. So you and Ryler are up north. You're in school. You're studying. You take these exams. You come down, and you played Liberty, and Ryler played Raven Clausen. And the beauty of Ryler to Hart is he shows up next day and goes, "Let's go again." And because I don't think it's a matter that he knew he was in exams and he hadn't been playing. He's going from indoor to outdoor. He just was a competitor, where you were going, I don't think I play so well, and I go, come on, Posey, figure it out, Posey.
I think that was a tough one. I think she handled me there pretty easily after a season of
I can remember taking
intense practice in Maine. Yeah.
I remember being at the Eddie Herr, and Raven came with me, and Liberty. I would think it was the quarters trying to get into the semis, and she had played such great approach shots. And, a lot of times anxiety comes into it. And Raven was so humble, just like yourself, is that, you hit better approach shots than I do. Why weren't you coming in? Why were you going forward?
Yeah.
And her answer was, I was thinking about being in the semis. I mean, same old.
Honest answer, yeah.
With the coloring book, the Vic Braden book, but tell us about the novel. And then I think you could start bringing up some blasts from the past, some names. But Posey, I tease people, go, hey kid, you're my favorite player. And then 2 seconds later, I tell another kid, hey, no, you're my favorite player. And they hear it so often that they know I'm just teasing, but you literally are from that time. Roberto Cal is such a great guy. I mean, he has you as the number one hardest worker of all time, and I think when you think about that, my time in tennis.
I think you knew a few other guys in your time.
I'd have to stop and think. I mean, I'd really have to think. Well, there's some people that would tie him. You can't say who's number one, but and I don't like those conversations. Who's the greatest of all time? Who's the GOAT? But yeah, I think of my time in tennis, about 29%, 29% of the time. That's quite a long period of time that Roberto, and he came in knowing so much about sport, knowing so much about soccer, knowing so much about life. But all these years later, I mean, he really knows tennis. But
he would be up there with Cressy for most improved player of all time. I mean,
well, his path in tennis for sure. But again, backtracking to Cressy. But even with that if he starts to win, which he is, he's on TV all the time now, and that's a sign that you're doing really well. But Pete Sampras, I say it over and over again, I just keep pounding on the same principles. Vic Braden, I was flattering, said, Steve, we should have worked together. We should have taught ISTPs and ESTPs. And I said, Vic, we should have taught tennis teachers. And you go forward with a flashlight, making new discoveries, and I go backwards with a club, hitting people over the head, going, "Did you get it? Did you get it?" And
it could be a winning combo.
But with Pete Sampras, the last time he played an official match, he came to the net 104 times, and class act. he didn't influence tennis. It's amazing because people want to win at every level. The kid wants to win, the parent wants to win, the coach wants to win. There's bragging rights. I mean, can you imagine bragging that you're coaching a top 10-year-old? I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, then you try to make a point, go, well, if 64 10-year-olds play a tournament, who wins? One 10-year-old. And I don't want to pick on the 10, 12-year-olds, but if 64 idiots play a tournament, who wins? One idiot. And you know, a lot of times kids aren't even warming up on the volley. You know, they don't even take volleys and overheads in a warm-up. No, granted, it's the equipment too.
Yeah.
You know, it is brain memory. They haven't gone forward. They haven't done the right things along the way, and it's a crisis. It's tragic.
What do you think could change it? I mean,
I think pickleball. I mean, come on. You know, if there's money in pickleball and everybody's playing pickleball, and perhaps the USTA, who knows? That's going to turn into a racket center, not a tennis center. And I say bring it on. And if you want to be really successful in pickleball, learn tennis skills. So, yeah, I don't think Cressy is going to. You know, there may be a few people, but even like on a green light point, the approach shot's a lost art as well. I mean, I had a young boy today. He's 18. He's one of the better players in Quebec. Had him play a young girl. And I said, hey, this is how we do it. When you're serving, you're going to try to win the point in 3 shots. And when you're returning on her second serve, you're going to try to win in 2 shots. And, I mean,
right.
He's almost, you know, he's climbing. He's, I think, soon to be a 12. He lost 6-2. He lost 6-2 because, I mean, he's played his whole life. I mean, we've known him now for 6 months, and it's like, no, you double your life. You're 36. You're young, and you can't play from the service line in. So what are we going to do? You know, Vic Braden used to have so many great lines. His 2 baseliners were playing. I was at the Easter Bowl with him one time. 2 baseliner players are playing, and one's better than the other. And Vic goes, the poor kid's just got to mail in the scores. And the best way to sum it up is the kid's got no options. You know, and that's where you have to do the situational training. Okay, we're going to throw up a moon ball. Again, Harold Solomon, getting to meet the legend. That name came from Bud Collins calling it, here comes the moon ball. And he took the racket low on the backhand side, had a forehand grip on the backhand. And, I mean, this guy was amazing, fantastic. So, I mean, so much respect. You know, to meet him all these years later, but, I mean, I was just a fan. And Bud Collins used to call it the Solly Slop. But that's
is he the guy you told me like learned to play hitting a ball on like up on a roof?
No. Dr. Mayer did that with his kids.
That was the Mayers.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
Hit the ball up in a garage door and a garage roof, and the ball would roll down. But
somebody who developed a sort of a looping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think he talking to me the other day. He credited his dad where he had hit 1,000 balls in a row 3 days a week with his father, who was a club player, and they missed at 800. They got to start over.
Wow.
That was a great few, 15, 20 minutes with him where he's talking to these kids. And plus, like Medvedev today, people told Solomon, he said, no, so many people said, I'll never be any good. Small guy, but, biggest heart, is the most grit. Amazing.
Well, what do you think about Medvedev?
Medvedev, I mean, he's got the Russian mentality. He grew up in the French system where it's play. And I told people every day, like Connors was that way. I told a young boy today, I said, okay, you knew basically by the ball, your opponent, baseline to baseline, your opponent's shot, by the time he got to their service line, you knew it was going to be wide. You just stood still and called it out. What Connors was trained to do by Gloria, I was around Gloria a little bit. I asked Harold Solomon about Gloria. I mean, it's like, I love the stories behind his stories. I mean, technique. I mean, I just love the character side of it. So, but Connors, when he would practice at the ball was a foot out. He's hitting it. And even when he played, but the thing is to get your body behind the ball, get set. For our listeners to go back and listen to Giddy Arrow, you got to have a ground reaction force. I mean, that's where the forces come from. But you watch Medvedev, he runs and he's gangly. I mean, people said you're not going to make it, and that's one of the reasons that he made it, because people didn't believe in him. But he runs it down.
Right, it seems like he gets some motivation out of that. It just looks like his personality.
I mean, you look at his backhand volley. I mean, are you kidding me? There's so
Well, what about his backhand?
No, it's and so much calculation. No, you got to the serve. Take your hat off. That toss is so far in front. He's 6'6", I think. But Medvedev, he runs like a dog after the ball. So what happens when the ball's out? I mean, he's right there. He's right there to hit it. And he just gives it to the ball boy. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
But the work ethic, the competitiveness. It's amazing. I think that's where what happens with tennis at the grassroots level, it shouldn't happen where, well, that's their style. Anything goes. I mean,
that's what I was going to ask you, because I feel like a guy like that, if people want to make that argument, they just point at him and they go, no, everybody told him he couldn't make it, and you're telling me I can't make it. Well, I'm going to be him. How do you answer that?
No, I mean it's a dilemma. I mean, people are sent to us. They get on an airplane, they fly out. They're sent to us to make changes technically, and that's not easy.
So the people coming in, at least they already have some belief.
Well, they certainly are. Okay, I've been told to come here. I'm going to listen to this guy. So it's a pretty captive, audience. It's not like they can go 5 miles down the road. They flew in and checked into a hotel. But no, I think that
they've had their whole foods ordered. They're stocking it.
I really think it's a sport of a lifetime, and I think Dave Secker said it well. Is a GreatBase basically should be called safe tennis. Braden, prevention of injury using the large body parts. So, that phrase, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But at 10 and under, it's broken. But the kid's holding the trophy. The trophy.
Yeah.
So, winning's not confusing. It's totally confusing. And, a lot of people think, okay, if a kid is 15, 16 years old, you don't want to make big changes in their game. But if you study history of tennis, Bill Tilden, very wealthy guy, grew up in Philadelphia, and I think his father was the mayor of Philadelphia. But way back when, they hired a coach, and he changed his grip, couldn't really hit a backhand. Don Budge won the Grand Slam. It's 38. He had a Western grip on the forehand side. I mean, you just can go through it. I mean, Borg lost to Pinata, and he changed his toss. First year in '76 when he won Wimbledon, he was injecting Novocaine into his stomach. So I love to tell people about change. There are examples of people who've made changes in their game, but there are not that many of them. But they are out there. Pete Sampras, his sister,
two-hander to one-hander.
Yeah, his sister, same with Edberg. His sister Stella said that when he made the change, he couldn't beat the local high school players. And then with Pete Fisher and studying film, and Agassi, said that he goes, "What are you doing?" But he was going forward. Michael Chang, who's a great player, won the French at 17. You ask kids, of course, they don't know tennis history, but say, well, who won in the 12s? Who would you bet on? Michael Chang, who had tree trunk legs and as fast can be.
Yes.
So who wins in the 12s? Michael Chang or Pete Sampras. And, basically the way we teach tennis, it's a Bradenism. We're teaching you to lose at a faster rate. You're going to go forward. And if you're dictating the point, Posey, if you're missing in the green zone, I told a girl today, I said, no, you played awesome. You missed an overhead. And for us, the kid in the 12s who hits the most overheads, that's the best player. I mean, there's kids. I mean, I watched a match a couple of weeks ago. Our player came to the net 7 times, and he won 6. He hit 1 overhead. He won the match. Great young coach from Montreal. We sit down and talk, and he said, "You need courage. Don't be afraid of going forward. That especially when kids are smaller and not so tall." And so Posey, tell us about the novel. I know you're helping your mom with a lot of mechanical writing as far as. You tell us a little bit what type of writing you do for your mom with her projects. The Wall of America.
I think this is not much of a topic here. We started out years ago. Just it was just her. She had no sort of grant writer or anything, so I kind of we worked together on that, and it was actually kind of fun just trying to science out how to, claw some dollars out of people. I think we had a couple wins, but a lot of losses. And yeah, she just has become an incredible fundraiser. Just not her personality at all, but just sort of out of necessity, she's managed to do it.
Very quickly, a shout out, a commercial. Tell us about her project, the name of it, and just.
All right, anybody listening who's near Winsted, Connecticut, you got to check it out. It's called, or you could just look it up online. It's the American Mural Project, AMP for short, and it's like a giant mural honor of working Americans. It's took her like 20 years to do it. Worked with kids like across the country, 15,000 kids, working on different parts of it. And it's 120 feet long, 50 feet high. And that's about it.
Tell us the name one more time so people can look it up.
Thanks. It's the American Mural Project. You go to AmericanMuralProject.org and you'll see it. Just anyway, the point here. Thanks for teeing it up. Is it just opened like a month ago? So after 20 years, it's kind of exciting.
Well, the word project, I tell people all the time is, and you are a project player. People can get to the point where they're a blue chip, but everybody starts as a project player. That's a much better term than beginner, although I have no problem with the word beginner. Everybody has a right to be a beginner. But a project player, let's go to work. Let's go to work, and you got to learn this shot and that shot. And what clouds the whole developmental process is winning. Winning takes care of itself. Winning's a byproduct of skills. It's people are in a hurry to go nowhere fast. But so you with the writing side of it, I guess I could say this, Posey, with your novel that we're looking for, I'm going to be the tall, dark, handsome person, right?
Yeah.
But I remember,
Yeah,
I remember you sitting at a table. And I'm going, Posey, it's beautiful out. What are you doing sitting at this table? It's a Sunday. You could do whatever you wanted, and there's no tournament. I go, Posey, what are you doing? He goes, I got to write this letter. And I come back. I go, Posey, what are you doing? I'm still working on this letter. And one of the students wanted you to help them with an essay. And I said, Posey, go eat at your favorite place around the corner. And I said, by the time you get back, I'll have this written. And
I think I remember this night. Yeah.
And when years ago for yourself, the people that we had, it was great. The NCAA rule changed, but we had college prep students. Everybody was a high school graduate. We didn't have younger kids. We had high school graduates that weren't quite good enough to be recruited, but they wanted to play college tennis, so they're going to take a year. And we had it set up where, maybe the math was, $3,000 a month, but if you're a student assistant, it's $2,000 a month, and we want really everybody to be a student assistant. But if your child has just so much time with whatever it was, SAT prep or whatever, that they didn't have to be a student assistant. But pretty much everyone was a student assistant. If you had to.
I remember this. My mom asked me after a month. It's like, is this guy ever going to send me a bill? I haven't received any bill.
It's pretty much,
I think I had to ask you, my mom's ready to pay you, but she hasn't received it.
Well, it's pretty much.
She doesn't know the amount yet.
It's pretty much the same way where it's going today is, and unfortunately, some people don't pay their bills, but you have to chase the money. But for years and years, we haven't run a business where you pay up front. But anyway, so there was 10 or 12 of you were, student assistants, and we are teaching underprivileged children. We're cleaning toilets, sweeping courts, doing the whole 9 yards. So because when you tell someone, well, I'm a tennis kid, a lot of times tennis kids, they just are not used to getting their hands dirty. But anyway, then what I had written, it was perfect because then you had the magic touch as far as grammar to take it up a level. But
I don't know about that, but I definitely remember struggling for a couple hours there. Yeah, that was a tough one.
But the thing is that I think that sometimes I just got to tell it like it is. This is what you're doing, but also too, I think also that I was embellishing because the young guy was not stepping up to the plate and doing some of those things. But I wrote it but this is what everybody is doing, and that made it a little bit more powerful. So, but tell the listeners, I should say, about your novel. It's a tennis novel. You've got three different versions. You're working on the fourth.
Actually, three different books.
3 different books.
Working on a legal thriller. It's a little bit of a challenge because I don't know anything about the law, but I'm enjoying it. I loving the research, and
that's your fourth.
Yeah,
your fourth book.
Fun.
Are any of the first 3? I thought they were about tennis and some of the spin-off.
The first one was about tennis. It basically is about you. Yeah. There's a award-winning novel in this story. I just don't know if I can write it, but yeah, it's the amount of material that I had there. I feel like if I can't make that into a novel, I don't have any business doing it. But yeah, it's I gotta go back to that one.
But then you got to get it. How do you get a book published?
Yeah, that's I'm not the guy to ask there. I think it's tough. I mean, we got to finish it, obviously, which is the thing you always told me, and then you got to. It seems like there are a lot of different gates it's got to get through. You got to get an agent, and the agent has to. So you got to sell it to them, and they got to sell it to the publisher, or an editor at the publisher then has to sell it to their boss. And yeah, there are a lot of steps, but I think the agent is sort of the key first step, unless the book is just so great that, you hand it to somebody and the person's just like, yeah, we'll publish this. But yeah, it's tough. I think it's probably a little easier than becoming a pro tennis player, but it's got its challenges too.
With that time, what do you think that was, what do you think positives were for that culture at that time? The tennis.
Just the culture of
HCC, Hillsborough Community
HCC.
College. For our listeners, right behind where the New York Yankees play spring baseball, across the street, you have the Tampa Bay Bucks. On a 2-year junior college campus where we had a cafeteria. We had a gym that we couldn't use that much. And then at one point, unfortunately, one of our visitors was out of line and we couldn't use it at all. We had a weightlifting gym, had a library. We had 28 tennis courts. We had our famous dollar clinic. Roberto Callas, I always think that was the greatest thing when Raven Klaassen, who spent 5 years there, he gets to the Wimbledon final, and Roberto goes, and he ran the dollar clinic. We trained him to run the dollar clinic.
Yeah, man, talk about there's a humble guy for the guy he was.
I was just told today.
Yeah, you're asking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
With Raven, I was just told today that someone saw him last week. He's got his great friend in Philly, Punch. Should be able to tell you Punch's last name, but South African, and Raven finds his way there before the U.S. Open. But I think he's 4-0, and he had 3 knee operations. So
he's one of about 50 unbelievable people I knew, and just unbelievable stories. I mean, I was there when he came with this his friend PJ.
PJ Don.
And and just both just the greatest guys. But I mean, there was a guy who I think he was made for your system because just nobody wanted it more, I think, but obviously to go through those surgeries and keep going and then sort of get all his best results on the other side of it. But
really late in life too. I mean, he wasn't really playing the big time till his late 20s.
I remember I asked somebody about him. You were trying to set up a sort of LLC to support him, and somebody said, the person said, "How old is he?" I was like 19 or something, or 20, and they were like, "Oof, that's a bit old." And for me, I was like, "Hey, I'm like 22." I mean, and like, yeah. Anyway,
very, very coachable, very disciplined, very respectful. I reprimanded him one time, and that was it.
I mean, all the times that we played together, he never treated me like I was any less of a, like I was just there for some other purpose than he was. It was like,
yeah, his mother passed away recently.
He acted like we were there for the same reasons. It was really something.
Yeah, I talked to his father recently. His mother passed away during the pandemic, but such classy people. I'm just very confident that he'll make an impact on tennis through coaching, because again, at 4-0, it's winding down for him.
Yeah. I wish he'd gotten that Wimbledon or the Australian, but two major finals. I mean, that's a pretty insane career,
Yeah, no, he's done well. I think with going in the fifth set, I'm 99% sure he's the one. He lost his serve in the fifth. But to be so close and to be a Wimbledon champion would have been fantastic for him. So I don't think there's anyone who's more deserving. I mean, he's right up there. I mean, there's a video clip. I was in South Africa. Went the first time. I didn't make it to Cape Town. Second time I went to Cape Town, and my host took me down to meet Raven and see that area of the country. And so we actually talked about it on a video. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Posey was beating everybody in the plank and the iron V, and so we had this field, and I'd have people race across it doing the bear walk, and Posey was just killing people, and Raven was away at tournaments for a couple of weeks. He comes back, and so I go, okay, we got to have Raven. He hasn't been here since we've been doing this bear walk, and it was Raven versus Posey, and Posey got beat pretty badly, and Raven, quiet, humble, he walks by and he goes, "Lion walk." So we know the lion's faster than the bear.
I remember this every time I'd be sort of down in my confidence. I just have some terrible loss, and you'd set up a bear walk for me to sort of get my spirits back up, and I was feeling pretty good about my bear walk prowess, and then he came along, and I remember you had a basketball hoop in your garage. I mean your drive, and
actually we had one at ACC.
I don't remember that. This was just we came home one night after practice, got out of the car, and the ball was just lying in your driveway, and the hoop was like, I mean, can't have been like regulation, but it was like, I couldn't dream of dunking on this hoop, and we're basically the same height, and he picks up the ball just on his way to the door after like 9 hours of tennis, and he just dunks it. I look at him like he wasn't like showing off. He was just like walking to your house, That's what I realized. Like there's something to talent here beyond the work, and then he obviously combined it with the work. So,
well, with his mechanics, people have to have the eye for it, to see how he swings the racket efficiently for returns, how he volleys.
Would you say he's one guy that you actually can watch and feel pretty proud of being a part of his
No, for sure.
his development. I mean,
For sure. With
you can't have a lot to pick on in his game, right?
No, for sure. There's but the one thing is that we've taught all sorts of people hit the ball cleanly, but do they have the intangibles? I mean, not only the intangibles. I mean, as you said,
Right.
he could jump through the gym. He's just so athletic, but also too the discipline, the determination, the professionalism. You know, it's like when you first came and said, "All right, Posey in doubles," and you said, "Oh, I don't play doubles." I go, "You do now." And with Raven, you know, he could have gone to college. There's so many colleges, best schools in the country would have taken him, but with with Raven, he had no choice to learn how to teach tennis. That's what we do anyway. It's mandatory. We teach everyone to teach.
Right. Right.
You know, these things I say over and over again. The highest form of retention for learning is to teach. But if you know, there's a novel. But if you were just to write a book on some of the things from that era, you know, there'd be a cast of characters for sure.
Oh my God! It was you were asking about what were the positives, you know, and I feel like basically everything, you know. I just but starting with all the great people, you know. I think it's because you sort of attracted them, but or maybe you kicked out the ones who.
Well,
I was almost kicked out on a few occasions. So.
Oh, I don't believe that for a second, Posey. But no, there was one.
I remember you invited me to check out other academies in my first month there.
Yeah, no, I think.
That's right. That you sort of reverse psychology me. I was like, wait a second, like he's not trying to like keep me here. Like I was like, man, maybe I better try to keep myself here. You know.
Well, for years, I mean, Saddlebrook. It's no secret. Saddlebrook was on one side of us, and you know, 30 minutes away perhaps, and Bollettieri's is 45 minutes away, and a little more. Maybe.
I remember when I was looking for where to go, I didn't know you were even existed, and I just, you know, Bollettieri's. I mean, that's what I'd grown up like from Connecticut, hearing about. It's sort of the land of, you know, the land where they say where champions are made or something, or whatever. And I had called the guy who was the head of their college prep or whatever program I would have been in. He's like, yeah, you know, we had like Andy Roddick. He was training with our guys yesterday. So this is like the caliber of player that you could be, you know, at least in touch with. And I'm like, okay, this is it, you know. And I had my bags like packed.
Well, but there was your family friend Sam Garcia. That's how you took.
And Sam called me. He called me like that night, and he was like, he had heard what I was doing, and he's like, you got to talk to this guy Steve. And I'm like, I was like, okay. I mean, I guess this guy's got Andy Roddick there, you know. I got to go. And but Sam, he was my, you know, my tennis mentor, you know. And I was like, if Sam says so, I'm just going to do it. But and I remember calling you, and I was like, this is going to be awkward. I got to call this guy because I promised Sam I would, but I already know I'm not going, you know. And I got to sort of ask about this program I'm not going to go to. And I remember I said, I put it off, and I called you like 11 at night or something, and I was like, this is even worse. I'm like waking this guy up, and I didn't know that you never really slept anyway. But I remember you talked to me for like an hour, and at the end of that, I was like, this is the place. I'd completely forgotten about Roddick. So that was it. It was all Sam's doing for me. But I just
I like to have students go other places. But once they start the program, they need to finish the program. To go and, you know, their shop and bop and go check things out. But we at this public facility, municipality, HCC, Hillsborough Community College, we ran it in the spirit of the public. I mean, there's no agency. There was no scholarship students. I mean, we were working with underprivileged kids, So, and we were purely on the developmental side. Purely, it was not any recruiting.
I mean, I feel like you were like the anti-recruiter. I mean, I remember you refused to fix your like link to your website, but it was broken.
Well, I think way back when it was just a toll-free number, but no, we have a young man who was here this past week, and he's considering being an intern. So we had to clean a house today. So what I did is I took this guy. I said, "Okay, come with me," and he was here with another pro, 2 guys from Philadelphia, great guys, and I said, "Okay, let's go. You can ask me some questions, but we're going to go on a little field trip." And then with another intern, we cleaned this house that someone was nice enough to let us use this summer, and then you need to say, well, when someone says I'd like the job, I say, well, one, it's an interview is a 2-way street. Is that I'll give you a long list of people that I've trained that you can contact, but you got to figure it out, and I'll tell you these are the reasons you don't want to do it. But if you do it, you will learn a little bit about tennis. You give me a name, I'll give you a name. How about Hazy Baby?
Oh, Haas, man, what a great guy. He was there right from the start. For me,
he's from Malaysia.
He's been with you for a lot longer.
He's from Malaysia. His government. He played at Louisville. And, I mean, it's interesting. He's playing at Louisville, but he did play. It wasn't a long ago, but he played Davis Cup. He played Davis Cup for Malaysia, and
I remember we saw the tape of his match that kept them in whatever group they were in. He described like his first round. He said, I'd never been more nervous. I just could not hit a ball, and I was like, he had gotten killed, and he was. I guess you play 5. They have 5 total matches in the tie or something, so that this was going to be like the decider.
Yeah.
And he said he went in the locker room. And he's just like looking at himself in the mirror and trying to, get himself straight. And he said he just threw up everywhere. And he just went out, and somehow something had flipped, and he played the best match. He just as well as he played badly the first time. And he won. And he said it was one of the best matches he ever played. But yeah, I remember he was so good. I mean, obviously to me, I wasn't so capable of judging it, but he's such a beautiful game and such a smooth player. And I thought, like, man, if I could play like that, all I'd be doing is just trying to find some way, and I think he really was more interested in what you were telling him and trying to pass that on to people than his own sort of playing career. Was that sort of accurate?
You came from Connecticut. I mean, I went to a prep school in New England, a boarding school like you, and you came from the tradition of playing a different sport every season. So I mean, it was amazing. Like you played soccer well. You could play other sports, but you were meeting people that had hit a lot more balls than you. With Haas,
right?
He took up golf, and I remember we had a place that was on a golf course, and first thing he would do is we'd get back, and it was twilight, and he would just go out and chip and putt. So smooth. With Hazo right away, though, he had played his 4 years of college, and I remember he came to me, and he was interested in the teaching, coaching side, which is very unusual, because he was a very good tennis player, and his government helped him, spend a year with us. I mean, he has a PhD in sports science. I remember his wife, she was doing her dissertation on Twitter, and how Twitter will change society. This is a long time ago. They brought their son to work. They brought
recent person, huh?
Yeah, they were living in England. They brought their son to me, Adam, who hit the ball really well. Then they were in Australia. They actually were in Australia at a club. He was there because his wife was doing some research. And anyway, what a great guy with so many different things. With To make tennis happen in Malaysia, to have someone train like that, you just think how challenging it is to be the national director. And I think that would be in the cards even, in the future because of, what he studied. When he did his dissertation,
Yeah.
I helped him, and he helped me too, because what he did was the era, the players with I should be able to just rattle off the name of the pros. Like Juan Carlos Ferrero was one of them. And he took the players.
Really
A lot of the film, he lost to Roddick when Roddick won the U.S. Open. He coaches the young kid Alcaraz. And again, my fact checker, senior moment, I can blunder names and such. But he had a film of, and a lot of it was from the La Petite. And what he was doing was comparing kids' tactics at age 14 to their tactics at age 24. And he had the film of, say, 8 or 10 players. And it was fascinating. He actually said that many of them, by looking at the film, many of them did a much better job mentally and emotionally when they were 14. These young kids that are, among the best in the world at that age. But what his conclusion was, and I really should get him on our podcast, is their tactics were the same. Like in the end, very few people change their technical base, but very few people make tactical changes. I think of Vilaner all the time, where he won the '82 French, then in 88, he never won Wimbledon, but he won the Australian on grass. And his game is, maybe you could say, okay, he didn't have the biggest serve or whatever, but everything was great. Forehand was great, backhand was great, play approach shots, volleys. He was just a complete player. And he won 3 Grand Slams in '88. Beat Lendl at the U.S. Open. And but that's a guy that'd be another example of people who made changes in their game. And, kids I think young junior tennis players, they're not so focused on or in tune with history, but we'll tell people, if you don't know the history of your subject, you really don't know your subject. So, but Haas,
right.
The with who else comes to your mind from that era? We're looking at you came when, like 2000?
It was it was actually right after September 11th there, so that'd be 2001. Yeah, feels like about 7 years ago, not 20.
Yeah, of course. When you're my age, when someone says 2000, that seems like yesterday.
When
you're born in 1954, with Roberto was a permanent fixture for a long time and playing soccer every day. That was, I think, great for everybody. He was the referee, the coach, and did it all. He's still capable of doing that.
There's a guy with a personal story that's just it's got to be one of the most incredible stories you could have. I mean, just being in the presence of Roberto, you sort of tried to keep yourself together. It's like maybe I'll wait to throw this racket until he walks around that equipment shed. It was just after the stuff that he had done, you're like,
life in the Amazon revolution in Peru and coming to the U.S. And when you think of immigrants coming to a new country, learning a new language, and there's a magic about him. It's he's I think ISFP, and but you ask him to tell kids what they need to be told. He says it so well. And a lot of times the quiet person, the one who says the least, when they finally say some things, people really listen. They really listen, and that's one nice thing about not being the so-called head coach. You
have a little more freedom to sort of sit back and not say stuff.
Yeah, I know a lot of meetings. I mean, I think he was here. He's on his way back to Peru, but so 6 months. Many times in a meeting, I would just let him end the meeting. All right, Roberto. And maybe it's not just we have a very, very small group, and there's no advertising, and people find us, and maybe it's just a report. We've got a group of 14 people, and 7 of them on a Saturday morning go with me, and we go to a private school, and we're working in the gymnasium, and he takes 7 to the Battle of Boca, and then we meet at the end of the day and say, how did it go? And there's been repeat performers too. People come and they go back home for a couple months, and they come back, and then did they follow the plan? Did they love the process? You love the process will love you back. With Gabe Wapner, he was there. I could just
Gabe, absolutely.
Gabe,
just played with him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he came to visit. There's longtime friends with Flanagan. They're both upstate New York boys, and for parents listening, the guy comes in, and then he's figuring out this is when the garbage goes out. And
he was like you said, mature beyond his years.
Well,
I did not know when the garbage went out.
He wanted to be so successful in tennis. Raven tells a story about. I said, Raven, you're off this weekend. You're resting. Just take this kid. He's just playing a match up the street. If you please go with him, because I just knew that if Raven were to talk to him, basically the same age. Gabe, he was so hungry for tennis success. The kid. It's a famous story within our little corner of the world. Is the match is just starting out, and the kid double faults, and Gabe's on the other side giving it to Leighton Hewitt, lawnmower. Yes. But no.
I wish you could see him. I wish you could see him hit the ball now. I feel like of all of us guys. Well, actually, I can't speak for. I think a lot of those guys sort of pulled something out of it, but I feel like he was not the first guy I thought was going to get it. He just. Because of what you said, just it's so intense that he almost couldn't loosen up enough to hit the ball the way you were saying to, which is sort of a flip side of just all the stuff that's positive that you want to see in a player, the sort of dedication and, intensity and discipline and, anyway, all that stuff. But
no, I think with,
but in the end, anyway, I just have to, I can't leave it there because, I wish you could see how he hits the ball now because I feel like he got it.
Well, he's always super fit. I know when
he's in incredible shape and he hits the ball like I mean definitely the truest topspin in that I've seen in the past 6 months. I guess it's not saying much, but yeah.
With Wapner, Brandon was the same way from the snowbanks upstate New York. Didn't start tennis early. They just hadn't had the chance to hit so many balls. The kid who went to Hamilton College from Philadelphia, he was in that group. There's so many. Can't think of his name right now, but.
It was Jared Solomon, but I think I thought he went somewhere else besides Hamilton, but.
Maybe he transferred. I thought that's where he started, but I could be wrong. But with Gabe, going back to parents, the guy comes in and he just organizes without being told. Hey, we're going to go to the grocery store and we're going to get basically a milk club. Instead of 8 players going and getting 8 gallons of milk, they had partners for milk. Maybe it was 3 people, and he had it organized. There was always chicken. There was always pasta.
I remember there was really always was a hamburger helper. I remember he sort of led that initiative. He which is great. He was like, we're spending kind of a lot of money when we go out every night. What if we just sort of it was just like we rotated who cooked because nobody could really cook, but it was like,
you're all
this looks pretty easy, you know, and we'll just like, I mean, we were all like college, like, but it was like, you just add water, you know, I think we can handle this. And it's like, one guy will go back early and just like get the pot going. By the time the other guys get there, it'll be ready, you know. And there's like an infinite variety of flavors, you know. We'll never know. It's like the same thing every night. And so yeah, we had a hamburger helper for about 20 nights straight until we just couldn't take it anymore.
Well, you know, then you get people to eat the rainbow colors and such. But no, he definitely helped from an organizational standpoint. That, you know, hey, this is when the garbage goes out, and you know, just look around, be observant. You know, make things organized. In all the years, it was actually, I don't even like to mention 9/11. Before 9/11, people would come to work with me. If they were, you know, their parents or their coaches would come, they'd stay in hotels. But then I had 6 months of business. No one was traveling. And I said, well, I'll do this on a smaller scale. So that's how the whole thing started. And I mean, we've had cooks, we've had you know, different set of circumstances, but now I get so many emails and so many text messages, and you know, coaches send me things, which is all great. You know, you want to get back to people, and you know, like this summer, I mean, just wasn't on top of it with what kids buy. You know, we've had physicians helping us, nutritionists helping us, and it's just amazing what kids buy. It's just they get away from their parents, and a 14-year-old boy you just know they got their own money. They're going to the grocery the first time. They're not even smart enough to get a grocery cart, and you know, they're going to get how's it go? They're going to get Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts, yeah. I can't believe you mentioned Pop-Tarts. I stayed with Sam Garcia when he was helping me train when I was like 15. That's what I bought. I was like, I got to get something for breakfast. Hey, these look great. I've seen the ads. You know, I never could have them at home. I think I'm going to pick up this box.
I heard a comedian say about Pop-Tarts is the thing about Pop-Tarts is you can be really lazy. You don't even have to go get any milk. You know, you just if you're having the sugar cereal. No, I have some fun. We haven't been doing that. Maybe next summer, you know, go back to more of a camp format, larger groups, do it at a resort. You know, we have so many students that are based here and there, and I love to do that with cereal. Okay, let's name cereal. You know, say you have, you know, it's maybe just a small group at a camp, like 35 kids, and say, okay, round one. You just go from one kid to the next. It's a rainy day, and they can name 35 sugar cereals. Boom, and then you go second round. You know, with that size group, you may not get through the second round, but you say, okay, we're stumped. Now let's start with candy. You know, it's pouring outside, and it's amazing how many rounds to save, you know, 20, 30 kids, and each time it's their turn, they have to name a candy. It's just with actually Flanagan, you know, there's always one story, and you know, we used to use a camera that you put in a VHS to film matches, and you know, calling everybody with their last name, Flanagan. Go inside, get a VHS tape. He comes out and he's got a VHS tape, but he's climbing this ladder, which we should have had a safety net on, but he climbs the ladder. He's got a Pop-Tart in his mouth, and he has a nutritionist working for him at his performance center. So I told Flanagan, I said, I won't tell this nice lady, this professional, this expert, that you used to be the Pop-Tart king. With, you know, actually, you guys, I mean, there was like a Megan Broderick. I mean, she became a really good tennis player. She's top 10 in the country.
She was great. Yeah.
You know, she could run. She's from a family of runners. And you guys from upstate, you know, you come down here. I mean, she's from Wisconsin, but they brought her down to, you know, Mike Larscheid. They came to Florida before Mike Larscheid. He was their first coach. And then I was hired by a company, I was hired by a club, I should say, to just help them with their short list of interviewing 3 people. And so then he moved to Tampa. but she spent so much time working with us. But it was great that Larscheid had so much to do with her tennis. He started her off, and their family came first. Family of runners, and I mean, she just was a machine. But
I remember you said you could never mention a workout around her because she would do it like 6 times a day. That like 7-minute abs or whatever. We would try to get through it once, and she was doing it for like an hour a day. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I think of Lauren Embry. I mean, there's so many times where she was playing Lauren Embry, and Lauren Embry just had those intangibles. She's a gal. I think she's coaching as assistant at the University of Florida, and she had a brother who played. That was maybe a little bit older than my 2 boys, but I think Lauren Embry might have been the same age as Mikhail, perhaps. But so I used to see her and her brother play quite a bit, and I think Posey with grammar wouldn't be the brother and her, but you'll have to go back and correct me with all my grammar on this podcast. But
assuming this can be edited later, I'm hoping, because
yeah, right.
Just on length, I think I think we got a 10-minute package here after this 2 hours.
But Megan Broderick, I mean, we had college athletes, Ohio State, Illinois, where she would be a pacer for them because we would run intervals.
Yes, yeah.
And they brought her get up here. But I think also, too, so for you and the others that had not played that much tennis, it's pretty humbling. I think the best thing is the Jim Lair, to sum this up, is the Jim Lair competitive circle. All right, in the center, are you challenged or are you threatened?
Yes, that was great.
You're coming from the snowbanks of New England. You've played 3 different sports growing up. You haven't played that much tennis, and you're playing somebody that we've been working with since she was 9, and she's a machine, and she can really run. I mean, I remember Luke Wickham, what a fantastic guy. He used to just wonder, Broderick needs to go right from here to the tour. And she was just a little off on the mental part, the intangibles. I mean, she was a really good tennis player, but we all find a way to miss. But I mean, the ones that are really, really at the top, they execute. They make shots. But so anyway, you guys would have been coming in and being threatened. Then you have someone like Raven Clausen. He didn't play any competitive tennis for perhaps the first 6 months. Liberty Svecki, I made a videotape for her and told her dad, after she plays the Orange Bowl, if you want to do what's on the tape, and this Russian coach has said, hey, go see this guy. But for months and months, we took the cardboard box, and you can even take you can do it with not heavy cardboard, but if you take paper towels and you take, like say 3 of those, and you take the scissors, and it's not really that heavy. So she had that on her arm to keep on the backhand side, lefty, but keep the left arm straight. But I remember with the grip on her index finger, you could see whether it was heads or tails because we put a dime on her grip. And we always change things up. Back then we had people it wasn't like, we did, but it wasn't like people came in for 2 weeks. So it was, I think that's...
all of us, we were there for forever. It was months, right?
Well, that's where you took a year off. Maybe you went home for Christmas, but you'd taken a year off.
But like the local guys too, they just kept coming, everybody was there.
Yeah. Certainly we did some of that. I think way back when I was teaching tennis in the 80s, I was a volunteer in the 70s. I taught, I was on a professional staff in the 70s, but first as volunteer. But by the 80s, when I was in Tyler, Texas, a little bit, but very, very a few visitors would come. It's you're that homegrown grassroots. Let's see what you can produce right from your backyard. And of course, here in Florida, I think so many places, in your small towns in Connecticut, there's somebody out there, merchant of flesh with a business card at a tournament. Like the kid's very good. Everybody wants to be the third base coach. This kid may. This kid may score. What else you got, Posey?
I don't know, man. I think we've I could go on for hours with you, but I think we've exceeded our
Well, you're so humble.
time here for the listeners by like an hour and a half.
But with the legend of Posey, though, I remember John Doran, who played at Harvard, and by the time
I definitely remember that guy.
And Stuart Doyle had told him to come and see me, and by the time I ran into him, he didn't come to see me, and I was at a tournament, and I said, John Doran, you're supposed to come and see me, Stuart Doyle. And I can remember he played at Harvard. He played on the same team with James Blake. Of course, it was on clay. And I remember Riley Hardy. He helped us out quite a bit because I always embellish it saying he rode his bicycle over from Jesuit. But, that was probably by the time was his grandmother arranged where he had a car. So he drives over and he beats Doran. We've got it on film. And I can remember really, it was way past midnight. It was closer to 2 a.m. And we're going through film at HCC, and I had to break the ego a little bit. Harvard grad, great, good-looking guy, and he's like 250 in the world at that time. He actually was at that. He went back later and got an MBA, but he took some job, some Wall Street job, some big job, whatever. In fact, I know his brother Garrett spent time with us. I understand he's doing really, really well. I love Garrett. If you find out,
great guy.
Found out he went to Harvard, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm the dumbest person who ever went to Harvard." But but John Doran at one time he said he just said, "I got an announcement to make." All of us are eating Subway or whatever, and a couple of picnic tables are filled, and he said everybody here needs to quit tennis in 5 years. And I go, why is that? He goes, because Posey's going to beat everybody. Because you just were Mr. Backboard.
I remember you asked him. He was playing the Harbor Island tournament, and you go, "So after you're done playing, you think you're gonna run this tournament someday?" And he goes, "No, I'm gonna sponsor it."
That's a good answer.
That was pretty good.
He went back to work, but he still was good enough to be called up to play Davis Cup. But it was amazing. So
play for Ireland.
Yeah, of course. So he I'm not sure. Name some big companies. You give me 3, it's going to be one of them. So he's working for a company, and right away, but he's playing Davis Cup. He changed his stroke, so he made the changes. He made the changes.
Really, you saw him play later, and he done.
Yeah, no, he stayed after it, and young Gareth, he just never conquered the backhand. But he, like a lot of the Irish, Gareth definitely had the rugby mentality. When you talk to someone, Paul McDonald, intellectual, very smart guy in tennis, who's been based in Chicago forever. Once you spend some time with someone, the stories that come back, it's the backstories are more fun than the upfront stories.
Right.
With you were there when my son Mikhail was a machine, right?
Oh my God, you were talking about the what was it, challenged or threatened or whatever that was the one for me. You had me play him like the second day I got there. I'm like, oh my God, I mean, I don't know. You're 19. You're kind of just so clueless about tennis that you're like. I mean, I really was.
Listeners, I apologize. First time ever. We make all sorts of mistakes. My mistakes. That we lost Posey, but Posey's back. Yeah, we were just talking about my son Mikhail. He was a machine early on, and go ahead.
I think he still has probably the greatest two-handed backhand I've ever seen. I feel like really for me it was him, Agassi, and I don't know, maybe Kafelnikov. I don't know. You could probably name a few more, but he was. I'm sure he still is an incredible player.
Mikhail, he knocks it around. Actually, he knocks it around a little bit with Roberto's daughter. Jackie, who played at Amherst.
Oh, who also a beautiful player. Yeah, yeah.
It's about well, but with Mikhail, just one quick story. With Kayvon Karimi was number one in Texas. I guess 12 and under is Mikhail. One in Florida. I mean, ranked very high. Maybe it was 10, 11. They were beating small college tennis players. They could just get a lot of balls back.
Like me.
So anyway, they're playing, and I was talking to Q, the father of Kayvon, who did play at A&M. It's interesting. They sent him to me after his freshman year, and he had a really good forehand, but it was very much a player with a baseline game and needed some work. And I
remember that guy.
He went to Steve Denton, who he's certainly he hired me years ago, and he is very positive about what we do. So anyway, my son Connor was playing and getting beat by both Kayvon and Mikhail. And I was trying to tell the dad, I go, well, he's missing volleys and he's missing overheads. He's coming in.
Right.
But anyway, Mikhail now he's 6'1". He's tall and lean and looks like a cross-country runner. And, it's great. He can knock the ball around. He has a hard time finding, a lot of just social players who can hit a little bit. But we were with Vic. My kids were very fortunate to spend a lot of time with Vic. And Vic is maybe 5'6", 5'7". He's not very tall. The late Vic Braden was not very tall. I had no idea. Rainy day in Orlando, it worked out. We went to an IHOP, and he said to Mikhail, because Mikhail, he stopped playing at one point, and you look back and go, he never really learned to lose. And
that's it. He won so many matches. He just any loss was just
But unlike most little kids, I mean, he was schooled on how to hit a volley, how to hit an overhead. Again, he worked so much with Vic. So this rainy day, it's just the three of us, and I had no idea what Mikhail would say to Vic. And Vic said, again, 5'6", Vic Braden said, "Mikhail, what's the problem?" And he goes, "I'm short." And Vic looked at him and goes, "You're talking to the wrong guy." But there was quite a few of the little kids. We had the courts where we would do move up, move down. Some people call it up the river, down the river. We had the 7 hard courts in the back, and we would put the little kids on the top courts in the back, and they would play move up, move down. And then when they eventually, they lose on 7 courts, so they've lost 7 times. They're going back and forth. Maybe they lost more than 7 times. But then they fed into the technical courts. But then we put the older advanced kids on the technical courts, and then they did that first, and they worked their way up to the. So there's so many things about that facility that were quite fun. But yeah, you got to work on your novel, Posey.
It's good. Someday it's the eternal project, but it's got to be done. If I can't do it, I'm going to turn over all my notes to a good writer. And
but if you've, I'm talking about
somebody's got to write the book.
Well, let's go just quickly for our listeners. We'll wrap it up. The coloring book, boom, that was one. The Vic Braden, the late Vic Braden, is missed, and unfortunately was missed. And that's not, he influenced millions and millions of people, but his work is and always will be relevant so I'm really teasing about your novel, but I know you told me that you were writing it with some ideas from all those years you trained with us. Put you on the spot, Posey. You wrap it up. What would be your message to the followers of the GreatBase Tennis podcast?
You're throwing it to me like Roberto for the for the final. Great.
Yeah. You're the last guy to speak.
The last word.
I need to shut up.
God, man, I don't know. It's hard to sum up all the stuff from that time. Basically, the only thing I can sort of think of is just a personal note, I just feel like that was some of the best times of my life being down there. I just it's just something about being in a place where everybody is so into something, and it's sort of something kind of pure about it, and just being around a bunch of people, starting with you. I mean, obviously that's why it was like that, but I feel like haven't always been able to live up to it, but I feel like it was a sort of ideal, at least to have ever since, and I just can't. I really can't imagine how things would have been if I hadn't gotten to be down there for those, 10 or 15 years.
Well, it was a long time. Certainly,
it was a long time, but
certainly to come back and visit with, there's so many things when you think about, a lot of the local players would play on the clay in the morning, but we had access to all those hard courts. And actually in Florida, it's amazing that a lot of adults, they just don't want to play on hard courts. And, so 16 hard courts at that time and backboards. But to have, I think that's great when you get a number of people that are passionate about simply, a sport, extracurricular pursuit, and getting better.
I feel like it could be anything almost, it just happened to be tennis, but just that you sort of, you set a sort of arbitrary goal, and then you, sort of the pursuing it part that, anyway, that's not the end.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mike McLaughlin, who's been a guest on our podcast, actually, he's the one who made the arrangements. I just had out, 125 books sent to me from Vic's library because the Tennis Channel wasn't interested in the books.
Yeah, that's great.
But Vic was into all sports. And, the formula for tennis, I like that word formula, is that, Welby Van Horn was the one to use that all the time. Here's the formula, follow the formula. And with that, it works for all sports. You got to, ideally start early, got to become an athlete, but you have to have fundamentals. And, so that's where not everybody starts in the same position. Did this person start early? Did this person start early with proper fundamentals? But no, it was a fun time. I think that there'd be so many different ways to capture things that we were doing, and we still do to this day. But you guys were so passionate for our listeners to hear this. Is just have a basket on. We had 16 baskets of balls because we had 16 hard courts, and you could have 16 courts feeding the tiebreaker test.
Right.
It could just be 2 or 3 kids on a court. Everybody was taught to feed. Everybody had to be able to feed a ball. I mean, obviously the tiny tykes, no. The early child development group, no. All right, everybody, we're going to hit, and you can get 10-year-olds to feed balls. I mean, everybody, we're going to hit 100 overheads. And we're going to hit sets of 10. You're going to hit 100 overheads off the bounce. And again, don't downplay for you to go back and make the team and be in the lineup at Bowdoin. That's good for our listeners to hear that you got cut, slapped across the face and sorry, kid, you're off the team. That's probably the toughest thing in sport. I think if I were to say one, gem from this podcast is here's a guy who got cut and came back and said, hey, I need another try. This is what I did. I went away for a year. And I've changed my game. I've built my game, and it's Bowdoin's not Wimbledon, but I don't.
But right there,
But the division, so many kids. I've got that's pet peeve number 972. That I get it all day long with these kids who love tennis, and they turn their nose up at Division III. I go, don't do that. for you to be on a team where you get to play tennis, you got a coach helping you every day, and at the same time, I mean, Bowdoin, obviously, you got a great education. What a great place to be, and I mean I always go. The toughest thing is to be cut. Second is you make the team, but you don't travel. Third is you make the team, you travel, but you don't play. Then it's like, well, no, you're just playing doubles, or you're not in the singles lineup. I tell kids all the time, and listeners to hear this, and for the parents, go, hey, we got to go to work. Nutrition, flexibility, stamina, we got to go to work. Because I've seen this happen too many times, where it's Parents' Day, and the parents come to visit, and the kids who don't play, they sit in the bleachers next to their parents. In the sport I grew up in, ice hockey, if you're not dressing, you're in the press box. You're not sitting with your parents. And
right.
But so, these podcasts we have, that would be one is, and I talk to kids about being cut. I even ask them and go, what's it mean to be cut? And they think that, they got to get a Band-Aid, that they're going to be bleeding. but your name's on a list, and then it's cut off. But actually, even in tournament play, you want to play this tournament, you'll hear, like Max Cressy, his name was brought up and doing so well, but here's an expression you hear a guy like Max Cressy's obviously said this many a time, I didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
I want to play that tournament, but I didn't make the cut. And that's another thing that's come out of this. Max Cressy's 6'6", and he basically, it's the same story as yours, is that people didn't think he was going to make it. And that person.
I think Cressy and I, it's basically the same story, right?
I think even though he's got
the first part, yeah.
I think even though he has a little height on you, I think you have a lot more, physical abilities. But
I'll see him when we're both like 85. I think that's to be my time.
That's what Vic says.
His knees breaking down. I'll just wear him out.
Another Braden is, when I know you were fortunate enough to meet Vic several times. You tell a 15-year-old you got 75 years to work on your game. Let's go. One last thing. You had a chance to meet Vic and work with Vic. If you were to say one thing about Braden that would it just be fun to hear, but also too is we got to get people to go back and again, the Braden contributions should never be lost. It's a treasure. What's one thing about you got for Uncle Vic?
I mean, in person, he was just the greatest guy. I could just sort of tell, just what a wonderful person he was, But just, I mean, the time I knew him, he had to be like 70 at least, I think, and he's still out there like teaching guys like me, like on video, and it's just like he didn't stop, Just with his tennis, I just remember that tape that you had me watch, and I remember the first time watching it, and I'm just like, as you'd say, sort of ignorant, arrogant, and I'm looking at him like, I don't know. I mean, you go, yeah, that's right. You don't know, but
what tape are you referring to?
This was just, you had me watch like there was one that I kept going back to. It was like the physics, something like the physics of tennis or something. But there's a serve tape.
Yeah, okay.
I was obsessed with the serve tape because of the thinking, okay, I get the serve, then I've got it. And the first time I watched it, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, do you really have to toss so low, and do you have to? I still think you have to like spring up into the ball with you. Anyway, all these completely ludicrous ideas, but. And I kept watching it, and I feel like the seventh or eighth time, I'm like, I started like seeing something in it finally, and I'm like, every time I saw that tape, at first it just seemed so sort of basic, and the way he'd sort of laugh as he's saying, do this and pack your bags for Wimbledon, and you're kind of like, okay, but and I just realized how much was in there, but it was sort of disguised in his kind of, humorous presentation, but that's the thing I'd say on him. If you can get any access to those tapes, just give him a shot. There's just so much great stuff in there.
No, it's great. Pearls of wisdom, with Vic, you toss high, you have more time to be crummy.
Yeah.
And then the rationale and low and out to the right, if you're right-handed, low and out to the left, you're left-handed. But yeah, I think that's the key word. Then if someone can show you a better way, if someone has the logic and the science behind it, I'm always telling kids, just go with logic and science. Just go with the rationale. Don't be a YouTube wonder.
Right. It's so hard not to, because there's so much. You can. This
summer, a young guy's doing really well academically. He takes all these AP classes, and you have a backhand that's outside in. Vic Braden, you have the limbs of a little kid. Your hands are in front of your belly button.
Yeah.
The ball doesn't go like a bicycle tire. You're hitting side spin. You're pulling outside in. And then, they come back and go, but I was watching Djokovic. And, yeah, watch Djokovic. He's got an amazing backhand. But, he's got an amazing backhand. But,
But it's not as good as Mikhail's, man.
No. But Mikhail, he's like you. He would not want to, hear any praise, but be edified. But anyway, yeah, Vic Braden is the pearls of wisdom. But Posey, it was fun. Great to talk to you. I hope our listeners, I'm sure they will, find value in this. And I don't think we really captured the legend of Posey. Roberto tells a story.
Well, there could always be follow-ups, I'm sure they haven't had enough yet,
Roberto tells a story that you were so polite at Tampa Airport. We're practicing, and you walk from the Tampa Airport. And as the crow flies, it's not very far, but you had to walk. I mean, if people know how you get from HCC to the Tampa Airport, and Roberto makes it the legend where,
I was probably sprinting with the bag, and
with the bag, sprinting for 4 hours. I mean, that's
yeah. I think this is more a story about my bad sense of direction than or geography than being polite. I thought, it's probably like 2 minutes.
No, but
wait, I can't get there. All these fences in the way and runways, and yeah.
You only have to say one thing though, like your sister Judy, that she shows up to visit, and she's giving you a hard time. He goes, John, she didn't like your shoulder bag. For our listeners, I think this is the last thing. It's the best thing. Is your shoulder bag was a garbage bag. That was great. you very unassuming. You had a garbage bag as a shoulder bag. But Posey, thanks for the time. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thank you, man.
It was fun talking tennis with you. Thanks again.
Anytime. All right, see you.
Yeah.
Adios.
All right, listeners, I apologize. We had a little hiccup in the beginning. I know the editing team, our helpers, will take care of that. But Posey, again, I just think the story about being cut, and it's like, hey, go home, come back next year, and do that. Come back next year, but take it to heart and go, I can improve. With, one thing we mentioned with Medvedev and Solomon in a discussion today, Harold Tom was saying, well, where I was from in the Maryland, Washington, D.C. area, no one really believed in my game. No one believed in me. And Medvedev says the same thing. So number one for a player is inner belief system. Number two is their work ethic. And number three, this is in our corner of the world, is knowledge. But anyway, 110 is in the book. Thanks for listening. Again, adios amigos.